This podcast shines light on strong and talented women who excel and persevere in life while bathing in abundant self love. So, if you're ready to keep it real, level up in all your inner work, creative business, and community impact, then you've come to the right place because we provide you with content that helps your soul glow and your mind grow. Thank you for pressing play. Let's dive in.
Hey, STUK community, welcome back to our pod. And we are happy to be here today. I have Madeline with me. Hey, Madeline.
Hi, I'm so excited.
And today we wanted to delve into a conversation about the divine feminine, which we talk about a lot here at STUK Designs. But, I think whether you are a man or a woman, male versus female, we all have divine feminine and divine masculine energies within us. That's like the yin and yang sign. That's, the symbolism of that. And just like that balancing energy is that polarity. And I think that we need both in order to have just a happy, stable, well balanced life. And so, the world has been changing. We're definitely in an era shift. And as, like the media is making things kind of speed up, and capitalism is for sure, pushing just us to rush, 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 as we should really be more internally slowing down as artists and really honing in on the work. I think that things have kind of come up for us as a team and just as women individually. So we really wanted to talk about using difficult times, using these like kind of just harsh times or maybe stressful times that the world presents us with, as a means to kind of really channel further into the feminine energy. And I think that a lot of times it's really imperative right now for men to learn how to tap into, utilize, and dive into their feminine energy as well. So I think that this conversation will actually be very beneficial and useful to men in our community as well. So yeah, we've kind of, in our own lives, me and Madeline over these past few weeks have been just discussing how we've kind of almost felt forced into divine feminine rest or divine feminine flow just because we feel like life has just made us have to take some pause, have to take some time to, reflect. And so yeah, we wanted to use some of our experiences to dive into this topic a little bit. And yeah, so Madeline, how have you been kind of flowing with the divine feminine and using this kind of, crazy social time we're kind of in? Just how have you been utilizing divine feminine flow to, to move through it with ease, to try to move through it in peace?
Well, I'll take it from the beginning because
Yeah.
it was not easy to
Mm-hmm.
start, and I had to go through some of the most turbulent times that I think I've faced in a few years, which March, you guys may or may not know that I go on STUK school tours
Mm-hmm.
with my pageant title. And I talk to young people all the time about anxiety and depression and how we can kind of hone in on what we're feeling internally.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been spreading the message about March literally being one of the hardest months of my life.
It was. It
Oh
was.
my gosh. We talked about this, Brett, but like I was in what I think would have probably been a deep psychological hole that I could not for the life of me break out of. Every single day I would wake up and I wanted to stay in bed the whole day. I didn't find motivation internally. Things seemed bleak. I was like, the weather was still super cold here in Chicago, so that didn't help me at all either, because I love to be outside and see the sunshine. So I was facing a winter of the soul. is what I like to call it. And
Yeah.
I was burnt out from all of the activities that I do because my life is the definition of running on masculine energy. If I'm honest, like I'm working full time, I'm a full time PhD student. I'm maintaining a pageant title that I love to do and talk about a nonprofit that I'm so passionate about. But like at the end of the day, I'm a human being with 24 hours, just like everyone else. And 8 of those I have to be sleeping. So I'm like, how the heck do I manage all of this?
Right.
I just I got burnt out. Like my candle absolutely extinguished in March, and I was like, what do I do? I don't even feel like myself. My interactions with other people were like practically non-existent. Like
Mhm.
I even felt like when I was doing mock interviews, like for my state title, I was not feeling like myself. Everything felt like an out of body experience. And Brett, earlier you said like, what was going on? Were we like in some other timeline, some other dimensional timeline during this
Mhm.
time? Because
During
it
March,
feels like,
right.
yeah, like kind of like a blip in
Yes.
time that has honestly been erased from my memory a little
Yes.
bit.
Yes. It was
Very-
March was weird. Very
yeah.
weird.
How like and then I guess what I did was I I was forced to get into my feminine. Like I said, I got burnt out and I said, I have to take a week off from everything.
Mhm, mhm.
From work, from school, from preparations, from life, everything. And I went home. I'm originally like from the Louisville, Kentucky area, which is, so beautiful and peaceful. And that's my definition of will return to nature. So I took a whole week off, which I was very lucky to be able to do, and I just returned to my roots. Going
Yeah.
home like energized me, and I feel like it was almost like going back to nature and going back
Yes.
to grounding myself and rest.
Yes. And I think that, just this era shift where society is heading right now, where I guess I should say I mean not just our generation, but kind of more our generations are headed towards this idea, this philosophy of returning to nature,
Yeah.
this idea of and have it kind of like symbolically represent returning home to yourself, which is what self-love is all about. um and it's interesting because I love history, and I love looking back at history and reflecting it to now. And I've always been really fascinated with art that was happening at the time of the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
um yeah, and at the time of, like, when Queen Victoria was ruling and all that era, and because it was very similar to now, like, all this innovation and this change and this technological change was, like, happening then, and it caused artists to be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we need to slow down," you know? And so, like, it would cause a lot of, like, cool art movements to evolve and arise, out of, like, this need to pull back from the fast-paced, masculine go, go, go capitalistic movement of things, because artists always are very keen on that and, can see, like, that, "Hey, no, like, we need to tell society that we don't need to rush, like, we need to breathe," you know? We need to be able to slow down in order to create, because the purest place to create from is that of a still, clear, beautiful mind, and I think that it's just and I think that that's also what the feminine flow really is, that feminine energy really is. It's like embracing that sweetness of almost like doing nothing, of almost just
Yes.
complete and utter surrender into like this floaty, fluffy cloud of energy, and it's so hard sometimes for us to get to that place. I always think it's interesting when people talk about going on vacation and how it takes like a few days for them to actually like, settle in to fully like unplug
Yes.
from that capitalistic just conveyor belt of just that go 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 kind of momentum, because it really is just something that's in the mind.
Well,
And
and I wanna talk about that
yeah, go
surrender
ahead.
a little bit and, like, why we feel so uncomfortable just doing nothing and
Yeah.
investing in ourselves,
Yes.
and I think it's because I have to stop and remember where my value comes from.
Yes.
Capitalism or, our hustle work culture places our value in what we do rather than I say this all the
We
time,
are.
we're human beings, not human doings.
Mhm.
And it's like we it's so hard. I feel when I take a step back and I literally do nothing, sometimes it makes me feel like I'm not enough because I'm not producing anything. I'm not producing anything valuable, and that's not true. I'm producing some of the most valuable energy that I could ever put out there. Like it's that peace, that surrender, that nurturing energy. And that's what I needed too. Like when I went home and I was just taking that rest, some people might, you might not have a great relationship with your mother, but you can like take this in any definition of a relationship. But it was the relationship that I had with my mom, having someone who could take care of me, who could
Mhm.
foster some of like my deepest needs instead of me all the time saying like I've got this, I can do this, let me do something to make myself feel valuable. No, it was like I literally was just in conversation all the time about how I felt, or having someone look at me and say like it's okay to not feel great right now and to just
Mhm.
step back from everything
Mhm.
and let
You
the
know
universe work.
yeah, that's so interesting because all of that, what you were talking about, what you went through in March is, I mean, I've already talked about, well, I literally talked about on this podcast what I went through in March, but so you guys can listen to previous episodes and my solo episodes for that. But I definitely, it's just this tumultuous time of like me announcing a solo show and then definitely just being attacked by a lot of friends and family and just like opinions and judgments and slander and a lot of weird things. So it's just like I've had to deal with a lot of really strange energy, and as you talk about like, just kind of finding like just like a safe space of somebody with nurturing energy. For me, I think it was just like just me reaching out to someone who really like understood, in a way that
Yeah.
like understood what I was actually going through in a way that nobody else could. That
Yes.
really just helped me because I think I might have just kind of lost it if I didn't do that because
Well, yeah, and
nobody else would understand.
you talked about during the Industrial Revolution what artists did, and that's a
Yeah.
community coming together, a community of like-minded people. Do you feel like you reached out to other artists during that?
Yes, 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 for sure. And yeah, like I think my artist friends were the people that actually like like that's the reason why I'm okay and was able to move through it, through this weird cloud of like of real just like spiritual attacks, but like I kind of think that artistry is also spirituality in a lot of sense, so it's just like artist attacks, just
Absolutely.
like just judgment and like people trying to like shame and guilt me for just like literally just like doing what I'm meant to do. It was just weird.
And
So
it was friends and family too,
yeah,
Brett, like
exactly.
close
So
people.
yeah, exactly. And people that are, supposed to technically, societally, they say, to be that kind of nurturing energy. But I think it goes to show that, like, it doesn't really matter. Who knows where that nurturing energy is going to come from, no matter if it's a friend or a family or somebody that you just happen to meet. Like, it doesn't, who knows where it will come from. But I think that, like, that's an aspect of grounding, to actually trust that it can come from somewhere,
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is so
Yeah.
beautiful. That actually reminded me of like a circumstance that I was through. I was in the drive-through and I was getting a Diet Coke like at this place right across the street from me. And this was during these turbulent times, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And there was a man who had like walked up to the drive-through and he didn't have a car, and he was right in front of me. There was another car in front of me and he was like asking them if he could order. And they were
mhm,
like giving him like the hardest time. We had been sitting there for probably 5+ minutes. So people were like honking their horn. And
mhm.
I just thought, like, this person needs some nurturing energy right now in
Yes.
his life. And you guys are like so caught up and moving, moving, moving and
Yes.
getting to the next place. Like, it could literally be getting,
It could be so quick.
nurtured by a stranger. So, like, I pulled
Yeah.
up and I was like, you know what? Go ahead. Like, order. I don't care. I have all the time in the world. And
Yes.
and I
A
said, you
random
know
act of
what?
kindness can just
Yes.
speed up so many things in life, but people just want to push and shove and rush past things. And it's just like, if we could just slow down and realize, like, hey, maybe this person just needs some nurturing in this moment for a second. And
Yeah.
maybe we can just move forward, and like everything will just flow in the alignment that it's supposed to, because we actually use that time to be the humanitarians that we all actually are,
Mhm.
and just like just understand that, hey, this person needs some nurturing in a second. Let's do that, and then like just let's just make things flow as they usually should. But it just, we don't take the time to foster the awareness of realizing that, of coming to those realizations, which
And like
progressive
you
society
said,
talks.
like flowing in the direction that it's supposed to. I thought this was a God moment because I looked at him and I
Mhm,
was like, you know what? I'm gonna order what you want. I'll pay for
mhm,
it. And
mhm.
he stood there like while he was waiting for his food and he was talking about how he had lived and he was asking me, he was like, where are you from? He was like, this is so sweet. And I said, oh, I'm like from the Kentucky area. He was like, I thought you were a Southern woman.
I love Southern women. Southern women are amazing.
And he was like, I lived in Kentucky for a while. And he was like, my mom is actually still there right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was a God moment. Like to
Mhm,
have that kind of connection with somebody. And it literally, that story brought me back to my roots,
mhm,
literally and figuratively. He was
mhm,
talking about my home. We
mhm.
were, connecting to each other on a level that most humans can't connect in now because we're so caught up in going
Yes,
and going. Like it was
yes,
so beautiful.
yes. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, why can't we just talk about how we're all just hella beautiful
exactly.
and how beautiful life is? Like, have you seen the Instagram account? I don't even really go on Instagram that much anymore these days, you guys, but there is this one where this guy, it's like an educational Insta where he's talking about Southern values and like the
Oh,
rules of the South. Oh my gosh, I will
no,
send
but I need that in my
and I
life.
will link it. I'll link it in the show notes because I think it's valuable, because I love Southern women, because Southern women aren't afraid to it's like modern society has like moved God out of like modern conversation, out of the home, or spirituality, I should just say, in general, because it's not even just about, just spirituality. And I think it's just so beautiful how Southern women are just not afraid to like speak on God, on spiritual things, on blessing your life. And that same energy, I feel like, is what made me come alive again when I went to Ghana, because it just was being around people who are not afraid to speak God life and God light into you, and speak life and heart, and that and that magic into you, because they'll just be like, praise God for you. I praise God for you. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for being here. Praise God for you. Praise God for you being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And it's just like over and over and over and over again. And it just like that feeling is what I get when I go to the South, like when I go to New Orleans, when I have that Southern hospitality, when I talk to Southern women, it's just like you feel that in your heart. It's just like, oh, this feeling of like your heart feeling so full and like just alive and safe, because it's that divine feminine energy of like that God, deeply God driven divine feminine energy. And that's why I love Southern women, because it's just so beautiful. It's just
I'm
beautiful.
feeling that warmth like in my chest right now. You should see my smile, like having this conversation. That's beautiful energy. And
Mhm.
it should just exist freely. But that
Yes.
comes from getting into your feminine, you know.
Exactly. And
Mm.
sometimes like, as much as we talk on this podcast about embracing, diligence, consistency, structure, routine, journaling, doing, yoga, walking, doing what you need to. Also, sometimes embracing the divine feminine is like taking your brain off for a second and like letting everything rest. And when I was in Italy, I learned the phrase, oh my God, I might butcher this, but I think it's
Il dolce
pronounced
far
like,
niente.
yes, way pronounce it.
Il dolce far niente.
Exactly. So that's the sweetness of doing nothing. And
Yes.
so, and that's what their culture is like, all about. And Italy was honestly where the stuck illustration, the seek here speak no evil illustration was like the street art that actually found in Venice, Italy.
Oh my
And
gosh, I didn't know that.
yeah, and it inspired and honestly inspired the whole like collection. And it's just that the vibe that Italy has, and it's embracing, because they honor the divine feminine, they
Yes.
embrace it. They embrace Mother Mary, like it's just and that was my favorite like phrase in Italy. Oh, also it's in the book Eat Pray Love,
Oh
which
yeah, yeah, it is.
yes, which, oh my gosh, I don't recommend the movie, but I highly recommend the book. And I read the book way before the movie came out, but it changed my life. It was a huge part of my self-love journey. Like it taught me self-love, I think. So,
And I love this because ho studiato in Italia durante l'estate alla scuola di Dante Alighieri. I studied in Italy at an Italian school and I'm fluent in Italian. And like, that's one of my,
you're fluent in Italian?
yes, girl.
I didn't. Okay, so I know that Madeline speaks French because obviously she's been
Yes.
going to school for French for the many many since I've known her. But this is I've never know I don't know, I never knew this.
And it's because we took the time and stayed in our feminine and to learn something about each other. When you're
Yes,
in your feminine energy and you step back, guys, like life, you learn so many things, and I think that's beautiful. So
yes,
it's one
yes.
of the reasons why I love Italy is because their culture
Me
really is
too.
surrounded by that,
Me too. And because and so much I've never so much magic happens there. And I think that that's why like in LA, right? Like I don't really leave the west side. Like my favorite part is just Venice. Like I'm just
Mhm.
mostly in Venice because it reminds me of actual Venice. And I'm obsessed with like that, the slow culture of it, and how it can create such a beautiful divine feminine creative flow. And even in my life, I've worked so many jobs like in actual like in Venice, LA. Like
Mhm.
my art inspiration have come from Venice, Italy. Like it's just, and it's in its complete place of divine feminine energy and an embrace of that. So
And I loved how you talked, you started talking about practical tips too for like just getting into this energy, even
yes.
on a daily basis. Like we we journal and we meditate and we have this structure in our life, but like also just taking a step back can be a part of your process too. Or for me, I've been going on a walk at lunch every day and taking my shoes off and
Oh,
stepping on the
grounding.
grass. Yes. Beautiful. Like
Yeah,
I have never felt closer to the earth than like taking those 30 minutes to do that. So
exactly.
practically that's what I've been doing to
It's so powerful and we don't think about it a lot. And I mean, in Italy, I mean, not to just like willy-nilly promote alcoholism because that's not what I'm trying to do, but
no.
they, often embrace wine and
Yeah.
they like and just like that feeling of like just harvesting wine, feed in dirt, feed in, whatever it is. And I think
Yes.
that that's their culture, but like also, I think that just them taking breaks and just like taking time to just like sit down, have conversations, have a glass of wine with each other, like that really opens things up. Oh, I had a great example of this actually from yesterday. I worked a STUK event at our co-working space in Oakland,
Mhm.
and my curator he actually bought a large portion of the block back. So it's now Black owned, that portion of the block now. So we had a celebration. It was Malcolm X Day. It was fabulous. But I met so many powerful women artists and so many powerful Black women artists there. And it was just such a phenomenal thing to have these conversations with them where they were like, so they were just so open and expansive to everything that that I was saying and discussing with Stuck Designs, with
My
just like
gosh.
my vision, with our movement, with like how I'm flowing, and and then I was actually situated between a throne of some sort, kind of like a Black Panther throne, which was fabulous, and then the bar. And the bar was run by this Black woman who actually owns a winery, and she picks out, hand selects her wines from Black-owned wineries in Napa and other
Stop.
fabulous places. I know,
That
right?
is so cool.
Yeah, so they're not any okay, so at first I thought, like, she was giving these really small, tiny pours, and I was like, "What is this? Like, really?" This is like
You're like, I'm a full glass kind of woman.
Right, this is
I have to
$10
pour.
for, like, an inch of wine, are we serious? But then I was like, "Oh, that's really curated," and, like, when you have those really expensive wines, you only really need a tiny little bit to actually, to taste the wine, to really feel the wine, to taste it, because it's that well made,
It's
and
the experience. Yeah.
yes, yes, and so she curates the experience, and I kind of cut that short, which I feel bad about now. Sure.
Hey, but yeah, you had to learn, you know?
Yeah. But she was next to my booth, so I bartered her some stuck coasters for, some wine, and we were talking. But it was that beautiful flow of like, that divine feminine flow of just like, hey, let's have some wine, let's have a combo, let's, barter some art, let's just like let's get to know each other, and I got to know that she is a business owner and she was struggling kind of vending for the first time kind of after the pandemic like me, and like how we just talked about how people don't understand that like vending is like a real kind of artistic practice and it takes a lot of energy, and it's nice to kind of just be in divine feminine conversation with people who get it. So
Absolutely.
oh, it was a beautiful experience yesterday for
And
sure.
and that's also even a reflection, vending, of having to go through the hustle process to
Yes.
learn how to do it and go through the struggles and the financial struggles, and then finally be able to, like, taste the sweetness of having that, be secure and being able to vend at an event, like, seamlessly, and then you have all these incredible experiences where you meet people and learn about their stories, and you'd only
Yes.
be able to do that through the struggle of
Right.
learning how. So
Right.
it's
Because like
amazing.
the struggle is part of like the art of it and part of the journey. And like, and then when we can lean into our divine feminine, then I think we don't feel like shame or guilt in just kind of like sharing our stories of struggle together and
Absolutely.
sharing what we've been through and sharing that because I said this, I don't know how many times I said this yesterday, but people would come up to, the booth and like, and ask about like the art and ask if like the art is me or if it's my if it represents me or something like that. And I would say, I mean, I think in yeah, like I think all artists, like your art is an aspect of you. It represents you in a lot of ways. And as you are telling your own story, you realize that you are not really actually alone, because
Mm.
so many people also share that story. And you realize that like by kind of expressing what you have been through in your own experience, your own artistic experience of this life, like, oh hey, that's that other person's experience too, and we can have a free flowing conversation about it, and it can be safe and it can be loving and it can be healthy and it can be okay. And it's just like it opens doors for art, opens so many doors for so many powerful conversations to happen. And I just had so many beautiful conversations yesterday with so many just like women and men alike, because I think that art just that embraces the divine feminine allows men to just kind of come up too and be like, hey, this kind of touched me in this way, like, or this kind of made me think in a way that I haven't thought about in a while. And I know people always come up to me with saying things like that. And it means a lot because I think that it's so important for men to be able to ground into their divine feminine energy as well, because we all need that balance. We need the yin, the yang, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, because like life is about flow and balance. Art is about flow and balance. Creativity is about flow and balance.
This is how I know that we're in flow, because I wanted to start speaking about how men can like practically use this energy as well. So
Yes,
like
please.
we're in flow right now, Queen.
Let's go.
I was listening to a podcast with a quite controversial MMA fighter, but the reason why what he says is so profound is because I think he is controversial at times, but
Mhm.
I'm not a man, and that's why I like to listen to what he says about manhood. He
I
was
like that
talking
too.
about
Mhm.
Yes. He was talking about how this, you may or may not agree with this. This is his opinion. He said
Yeah.
men are born without inherent value. And he
Yeah.
might drop that. And then he was like,
No, that's
think
real.
about it.
That's real.
Men had the primary purpose of going off to fight in wars. And people don't care how many men died in wars.
What you feel.
Yeah. And then like women, if women and their children were to die in that kind of chaos, I mean it would be all over the news, or it would be in newspapers, or
Right.
like back then everyone would care. But he was like, men have no inherent value. And I
Right.
was like, yes. And he said that's why men are so driven to be providers, to do and to
Yes.
make money, to be the financial stability, to build something, to create
Mhm.
something. And I was like, that's why men so badly need to just take that step back and to
Mhm.
allow themselves to honor that energy of il dolce far niente, and like
Mhm.
have be in relationship with people who can support. Like, you have space to feel, you have space to take a step back, and like,
Yeah.
when you come home after a long day of work, to rest. And like, that's why sometimes, I mean, I personally agree at points in time with like traditional gender roles when it
Yeah.
feels right, of like maybe a woman provides a meal, or after a man has like a long day of work, sometimes whenever you
Yeah.
feel that way. I don't always feel that way, but like we have to respect our energy when we need that type of energy. you know?
No, exactly. I think that, it took me actually reaching out to a friend, and realizing like that it's okay to kind of like express just what you're going through, because like I feel like because the person that I kind of reached out to, isn't afraid to kind of express those creative emotions, those like creative feelings. And I think just seeing that, reminded me like, what am I doing? Why aren't I okay with like being in flow with like my divine feminine in that way, and
Mm,
like, or just as an artist, honestly, in that way, and just like, why can't I just like express what it is that I'm emotionally going through, and let it be that, but like not but at the same time, but not make a story of it, and not make it
yes.
be some kind of like victimization, or like cling to it, but just be able to just like express our emotions as human fucking beings, and
Yes.
just like, and then being able to like move on and keep going and be the strong, invincible, amazing, wonderful people that we are, but also having the freedom to like actually express feelings, because
Yes.
I find so much power in that, especially when men have the ability to do that, when men have the ability to actually just like express their feelings, express their emotions, no matter if it's messy or not or whatever. I find that so empowering. And I think that not enough is said about how brave that is, when
Absolutely.
men do it. So I think that that definitely like just for me, reaching out to multiple, I guess, artist friends who are just not afraid to just do that, not afraid to like, and a lot of my artist friends are men, who aren't afraid to do that, who aren't afraid to like stand in their own emotions and express them as a form of artistry. And I think that that is so powerful. And that's also why, like, as a nonprofit, I used to like brand STUK as a nonprofit for women, but I've changed in the last few years as like a nonprofit that definitely, we are for women, we're supportive of women, we support underserved girls of color, giving them more access to the arts, but it's just like we're not just a community of women, like men have poured into this community, and sometimes in many cases more powerfully than women, because
Yes.
sometimes men, I think they need the divine feminine energy of it, and because they're not nurtured with it enough, because it's like almost not allowed by society,
Yes.
so interesting,
100%.
very interesting.
Well, I'm so glad we were able to talk about all of these things. I feel like this is what my soul needed at this
Mine.
time to transform. I'm sure it'll be really impactful for other people.
Mine too, absolutely. So, I also wanted to kind of discuss this soft era theme that has kind of been evolving and coming up, because actually, you know what? It really does makes sense on a profound level with the shift in our culture that we're currently experiencing. Because
Mhm.
I think that, like, if anyone is kind of confused about, well, what is this era shift that we're moving into? Or what is this, this new age, this new shift, this new kind of timeline that we're moving into? Like, what is it? And I feel like it really is and kind of can be described as a soft era, because it's like people want to kind of more move into their divine feminine, people want to more move into soft girl things, nature walks, moving in life, moving through life with ease, like having time to smell the flowers, having time to pick the flowers, lay in grass, having park picnic outings, like having longer conversations like they do in France, like having 4-hour lunches where you just have a deep existential like conversation about dreams and life and goals and where you want to go in your past lives and spirituality, and maybe pull out some tarot cards all at once. Like, it's just about, like embracing like the journey of self and self-love and your self-love journey, but coming together like with like-minded people and open-minded people to also, delve into those almost like renaissance like conversations of art and culture and expansion and growth and development. I feel like that's this era that we're moving into, and it's this soft era of divine feminine flow.
Mm.
And I think that how you like a way that we can really tap into that is by kind of honoring the natural cycles of life, the natural flows of life, instead of embracing this like external capitalistic flow of like the world, of what celebrities are doing or what materialistic objects you need to like consume that week or whatever it is. It's about what's inside people, and it's about embracing what your soul wants to do and how your soul wants to move versus, being kind of like run by that external masculine flow all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that that's where we're kind of moving into, and we're seeing this. Me and Madeline were talking about just seeing this, like, this soft girl era, just kind of phrase pop up everywhere, whether it be Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And what's that really about? And I think men are kind of like, what's that about? And maybe some women are like, what does that mean? So we wanted to kind of break that down, and for me, it also means like just, yeah, really becoming in tune with nature and the moon cycles. I like to follow the cycles of the moon, when there's a new moon, when there's a full moon. And then as a woman, that also relates to like my actual, menstrual moon cycle. So I think that, and me and Madeline both find connections in that. So, in what ways do you think that that connects to your own life or your own cycles, Madeline?
Well, my last, like, actual cycle that I experienced as a woman, like my menstrual cycle,
Mhm,
I felt like it was a bit all over the place and, like,
mhm,
it was really prolonged. Like,
mhm. Right.
it's not like TMI, this is like these are natural things. Like,
Yeah,
I had a longer cycle than usual, and I think that it was literally life forcing me into, like, taking the time to nurture the temple that is my
exactly.
body, feed it the right foods. I was craving like warm things. I was like wanting to start my morning even. I usually like go to the gym every morning.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't really like going straight to the gym and getting into that like go, go, go feeling. I started waking up even an hour earlier than I was used to. I made my coffee and I would like sit in silence and I would meditate and like give myself that time to just experience the feminine, to like feel into the nature that is my body and
Mhm,
ground myself before, going and going. And like, honestly, there's been a lot of videos lately in the fitness world. I'm obsessed with fitness, about honoring your cycle as a woman
mhm,
who like
mhm.
goes to the gym and realizing you're not always gonna like lift as heavy or even want to when you're on, your period. And that's fine. And
Yeah,
like leaning into that. And also lately, like literally the moon cycles, I've been so into watching videos about, new moons and how
yes,
we manifest during that time, when you shouldn't manifest, when you should just take the time to journal about things that you want to either change in your life or to continue, energy that's no longer good for you, how you
right.
can lean into that and just let it go.
And
Um,
work with the energies.
yes, work with it. It has improved my life so much to not think that like, oh my gosh, these times are coming and it might be crazy. I'm just gonna
Right.
let it do whatever. No, when you're aware of that energy, you're able to use it, for good, even if it is turbulent energy.
Yes, and you don't become a victim to the energies.
Yes.
It's almost like kind of like a relationship with like social media. It's like either you can like be a social media addict and you're at the whim of everything that social media is doing or these new features and you're just addicted and you're just going on all the time you're just completely addicted, or you utilize social media to your advantage, like you disconnect, you unplug, and you use it for your business, for your vision, for pushing you forward. It's kind of like that kind of, analogy, I would say.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I felt the same way about cycles and about my own moon cycles for sure. It's so interesting because when I was 25, I went to an astrologist for the very first time and I got like a full birth chart reading, and that was the first time I ever did that. And he told me at that point that like I'm really connected to the moon.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and he said that I should always like connect I should sync, learn how to sync my cycles to the cycles of the moon. And
Mm,
he was like, and I should understand the cycles of the moon because the cycles of the moon will connect to the flow of things that are occurring in my own life because I was born on, I believe, a new moon.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he told me all this when I was 25, and like at 25 I was just like a party girl, and I'd probably just come from the club that night to my astrology appointment that morning. I was like, okay, well, what do I do with that? Um,
You're like having
but I
this
was like,
profound conversation.
right, but in my own head, I've always been like a strangely existential person. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna take that information and I'm gonna do something with that eventually. I don't know how, but I understand it's important. So like over the years though, I started collecting, a few books, like, okay, like moon cycles, let me try to understand this. And then, and just having the knowledge though that I should be aware of it, created things to kind of occur in my life. And then in 2020, I actually came across a teacher who literally taught the moon cycles. And so I then, because it just aligned at that time. I just invested in her full course
Wow.
for a few, maybe like 6 months, and I really in an in-depth way learned how to attune the cycles of the moon with the cycles of like my body, and then kind of that's a return to nature and like self-love in a lot of ways.
It's so beautiful.
So yeah, and I kind of really did just learn that moon cycle aspect of the divine feminine, and for if you are divine masculine males, men listening to this podcast, I think that it is important that as a society, as a culture, as a whole, we're okay with discussing cycles, discussing these things that women go through because they are a part of the whole. It's not just really women things because, we are all connected, and we believe here at STUK Designs in unity consciousness for sure. And
Mm.
and that's why I think, within the Fly Girl initiative that we have, I think it's really important that we promote the aspect of period poverty and of how important it is for girls to be supported while, like on their cycles and when going through cycles, because it's not easy. It's like a whole thing. It's not just like a bodily thing. It's like more so it's just an emotional just flow of, I think, really learning how to master the divine feminine. So,
Yes, it's very
yeah.
much just as much mental, I
Yes.
think,
Yes.
process.
And I think that over my years of just like struggling with it and struggling with cycles and all that, I think it's really been a mastery of leaning in and being able to surrender to the divine feminine, when I've always, like, similar to you, just kind of wanted to be as a, me and Madeline are Gemini and Sagittarius, and it's very like go, go, go energy. Like we just want to be out in the field, on the adventure,
Let's
like
travel.
go, go,
Yeah.
go, travel, communicate, talk, go, go, go. But it's like when we're forced to just sit back and just be in that, it's just woo, that's uncomfortable, you know? And
Mm.
I think that but when you learn to embrace and sit in that divine feminine, it can become very beautiful. So we were both discussing how March was like, painful with that, you know, like,
It's so
but at
bad.
the same time, it's like it gets beautiful when you lean into the rest of it, because rest is productive. That's an affirmation, you know?
Yes, and I'm looking forward to taking that energy and learning from it and seeing how I can incorporate rest into my daily practice and hopefully, avoid situations where I might face burnout to that extent. And I just don't want to be in a place again where it stops everything because
Right.
you can't let that kind of energy control you. You must lean into it and learn from it, become in tune with it so that you can use it to evolve and grow.
Yes, and that, you know what, that's so key and such a key, that's a great conclusion, because I think that so many people have just been dealing with such like harsh energy, whether it be from like other people or, judgments or like whatever it is that you're going through. And I think it's just like, you just have to like just give yourself grace in moving through things that are happening right now. And I think
Mhm.
also then lean back and, give others grace, because, you know, we're just going through an age shift and also a polarity shift and a shift of times right now. And a polarity shift means like, it's like kind of on the axis of what's good and bad, black and white, right, wrong. And I think that, good and evil. And I think that when we can kind of realize that, like, well, what is really right and wrong and what is really good and evil? And can we find balance in that? And can we find the divine feminine and the divine masculine, like, flow of ease in that? And can we come together in unity and maybe like listen to, stories on both ends of those axes, and maybe come together in just like free thought and free thinking and like communication and community and understanding versus like judgment and being harsh with each other and like, attacking one another, or just like being cruel or exerting anger at one another or fury, because these times are very hard and we're all going through stuff interpersonally, and nobody knows what the next person is ever going through. And I think we just, really need to just breathe and give ourselves space, and remember to just ground on our own and really cultivate in and really make ourselves that main focus and ourselves that main priority. Because when we can do that, we have grounding to have conversations with other people. We have the
Yes.
tools that we need. So, these times aren't easy, but there is so much beauty that we can embrace in it when we can surrender into like the natural flow of these things versus what like society is pushing on us that isn't really like healthy for us at this time. So,
Yes. So I think that's a really great word to kind of summarize the time that we just went through, and what we can
mhm.
learn from it is surrender.
Mhm.
Um, Surrender and like grace for some
Yeah.
reason is
Yes.
the word that comes to mind.
Grace is gr- and you know what? Grace is really a word that I learned when I mean, I don't this is not like a relationship podcast, this is a self-love podcast, so I don't really want to get into this. But it is like a word that I learned that really sunk into me while dating somebody who was from the South, like I learned just like the power of grace and the
Mhm.
power of giving myself grace, giving other people grace, and then just grace as like this healing thing of its own. Like, I feel like grace is like it's not just a word, it's just like an actual feeling that you can go through and move through like any other thing, like something like grief or something like that. Is grace is an actual thing, and I think
Yeah.
that when we can hone into it and really like ground into grace, that's something that I learned in the South for sure. Because I think that that's something unique, that's very unique in the South of, the United States. It's like because, God is still very much the center there. It's like there's no shame in grounding into grace, you know?
Yes.
And I think that throughout this whole country and beyond, globally, because this is a global like nonprofit, I think that it's such a powerful message for us all to remember that
Mhm.
grounding into grace is a very real thing and can give you so much peace.
Yes, it can give you the permission. I
Yeah.
think the mm, I wanna say it kind of like the
It's like a
sacred permission to
yeah.
be.
Yeah, it's like this sacred, soothing feeling of being, of just
Mhm.
being, of having the permission to be yourself, of having the permission to be your full authentic self, no matter what it is, no matter how you're really feeling. It's just like this safe space to just be you and the zero judgment and just love, just
Mhm.
all surrounding. And, and there's this movie that I just love, which is called To the Wonder. And it's actually half in French and it has Ben Affleck in it. You should really watch it.
I should.
Yes, and it's about love, and it's about this relationship, and but then it goes and it expands love, and it's not just about this and so it goes further and it starts as this love between this man and this woman in this relationship, but then it's this beautiful independent film, so it's like then it expands and it talks about godly love, and it goes to this story of this pastor in the same town as them and how he's experiences in love and his experience with love is him and his relationship with the divine, and then it talks about different people and their experiences of love because, we all have different relationships and there's so many different kinds of love and we can all tap into that, love. And, but first that love starts with ourselves. And I think it's a beautiful film about self-love. And, it's really just, taught me the beauty of the just knowing that love is all around. And there's this beautiful scene in it, which is actually it's spoken in Spanish. It has multiple languages in the film. It's so beautiful. But it talks about how, you can see like it kind of synonymously says God and love, but let's just like love above you, love below you, love to the left of you, love to the left, to the right of you, love before you, love behind you. It's just like, and I think that's the feeling of grace.
It
It's like
is.
when you're just kind of in that bubble of like that blanket and of love, that cloud feeling of love. And I think that, we so often forget that that feeling can exist when we're struggling, when we're going through stress, when we're wrapped up in the stories of other people or the pains of other people or the projections of other people, it can kind of blur our vision from that which is real and only love is real. So remember that, everybody.
Yes. And what a beautiful way to conclude.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to conclude. And thank you guys for being here. We're so happy to have this other episode. Oh, and this episode will also be doubled on the No Filter podcast, which is Madeline's school tour and also podcast, which is a phenomenal podcast. And we have a podcast series going, which is an entrepreneurship podcast, self-love podcast, and then No Filter is definitely just like a divine, femininely driven podcast, and where it's boldly girl power, it's boldly just all women, it's just boldly all about the feminine. And here it's just really it's about unity, and we're inclusive of men, women, all gender, whatever it is, whatever your pronouns are, and just like embracing all. But that podcast is just, it's about girls, it's about specifically women. So we love that Madeline is doing this school tour for No Filter. We love that she is boldly utilizing her actual gift of women and girl empowerment to drive that podcast. And you should definitely tap into it.
Yes, you should. Looking forward to speaking with you there.
Yes. And it's all about, yeah, what would you say, Madeline? Like kind of like aligning the whole woman,
Yeah, aligning, I really believe in holistic womanhood. And I think a huge part of that is being able to learn how to find the confidence and the love for yourself so that you can pour that into advocacy for other women. Because as women, now more than ever, we need to empower each other and work together to lift each other up. That is the only way that we are going to get ahead. And you can only do that and lift others up when you can come from a place of grace and understanding of your inner self as a woman.
Yes. Yes. Love that. Okay, so yeah, I guess we're out, everybody. Until next time, just love up on yourself and love up on each other. And just remember that community right now has so much power. Our community has really been thriving and popping on Twitter lately. So please tap in there. And then we have monthly newsletters that come out and we let you know our monthly happenings. So definitely subscribe to those. But yeah, we're wishing you so much love, so much light, so much balance between your divine feminine, your divine masculine, and if not now, when? If not you, then who? Let's do this.
Amen.
Bye.
Hi everyone, hope you liked that episode. We are all about preaching self-love and empowering women and girls around the world. Support us in our journey as we provide art supplies and many more resources to girls in Ghana through our 2 programs, the Fly Girl Initiative and Little Heartists. We are also working on hosting more Color for a Cause events, as well as our No Filter school tours. Your help will enable this organization to work on bettering the lives of people around the world. For more information, visit our website www.stukdesigns.org.